Welcome to the Collide Kids Podcast, hosted by Christen Clark. This is a show for kids and families. You are going to meet new people and have fun while you listen. Let's do it!
Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the Collide Kids Podcast. I'm your host, Christen Clark. The Collide Kids Podcast is a show for kids and families where we learn together how life and faith collide. I am so happy you're listening today, and I hope your week's been going great so far. And maybe you're like me and you've got a few extra treats left over from the weekend. We've got a little chocolate surplus over here at my house. I mean, my favorite has to be the Almond Joys, so I'm not complaining. But now we have to figure out what to do with all the extras. I know there's a place for this. Like, is there a place we can send extra trick-or-treat candy that we should not eat? Like, we don't need to eat 10 pounds of candy. It feels like that's how much we have. So I got to figure out how to donate this and get it out of my house. Anyway, if you're a parent and you're listening and you need a quick dose of encouragement for your own faith, don't forget to check out my other podcast that I just started in September. It's called 7-Minute Devotions for Busy Parents. It's short, and it's just about helping you stay connected to God, even in the middle of your crazy schedule. Oh, and I've got something really exciting coming up. I'm really excited about this. Later this month, November 18th, I'm hosting a live webinar called Podcasting with Purpose. So if you're someone who's ever thought about starting your own podcast, or you just wondered how to use one to share your message or grow your business or grow your ministry, this is for you. So you can register right now on my website or just click the link I'm going to leave in the show notes and you can go straight there and register for the webinar. I would love for you to join me. Okay, now let's get into today's conversation because this one is so good. My guest today is my friend Joel Conwell Arcieri. Joel is a former pastor turned tech professional with a master's degree in counseling. Wow, that's a lot. He is a leadership coach, an author, and a storyteller who loves helping people grow and move forward. His first book, Your Missing X Factor, explores self-actualization. It's for people in corporate America. And now his debut children's book, The Boy in the Tree, When Weak is Okay, is just such a beautiful story about vulnerability and emotional intelligence. Joel lives in Greenville, South Carolina with his wife and 3 kids, and he also makes music with the Grace Collective. I loved this conversation with Joel. We talked about creativity and learning that being weak and failure isn't always a bad thing. So let's jump in. Here is my conversation with my friend Joel Conwell Arcieri. Well, Joel, I'm so excited to have you on the Collide Kids Podcast today.
Hello.
I mean, I have lots of friends and I like making friends, but we're friends before the podcast and now you're here. I don't know how to get out of that.
We were joking beforehand. I mean, we started our podcasts around the same time.
Yeah.
Back around COVID started. And then we I forget, I think I reached out to you and I was like, hey, I'd like to have you on the podcast just to kind of talk about your podcast and music.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't really... That's not like my thing. My thing's more like kids stuff, but sure. Yeah. And then we became friends. And then, you know, we've talked about doing the opposite. And then now I finally wrote a kids book. That's really the only reason. I wrote a kids book so I could finally make it on the Collide Kids Podcast.
Just so you could be on my show.
Like, oh my gosh. Once I do this, I can finally reach back out to Christen and be like, hey, Christen, I did it. Can I be on your podcast now, please?
Right. Well, you're here. Congratulations. You've made it. Would you just introduce yourself to our listeners? Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
So my name is Joel Arcieri. My author name is actually my middle name. It's Joel Conwell.
Okay.
Because it's a lot easier to spell than Arcieri. So that's why I did that. But I live in Greenville, South Carolina, which is the best Carolina.
Oh,
and
I have to fight you on that one.
Oh, yeah? You going to fight me on that? No, we're way better down here. But I live in South Carolina with my wife, Joanna, and I have 3 kids. Lucy, Nora, and Edmund. Yes, Lucy and Edmund are Chronicles of Narnia because C.S. Lewis Chronicles of Narnia, my favorite.
I love it.
But I grew up in the church. My dad was a pastor for forever, so I grew up as a pastor's kid, and then I got my master's in counseling, and I thought that's what I was going to do. And then I started working in the church, and I thought that's what I was going to do. And then I started working in corporate America. But what I really found out that I loved was writing. So I've been writing music since I was in middle school. I have a band, and we have our 6th album coming out in a couple weeks, actually. And we've done worship music there. And then I started writing actual books a few years ago. And my first book was not a kid's book. It was more of like a corporate America book. And then I had this idea for a kid's book that I'll explain a little bit more later. But then I wrote the kid book called The Boy in the Tree. And so right now, it's kind of like my life is I'm a parent. I have a day job. And then like my side thing that I really love to do is writing, whether it's music or books. So that's me.
Very cool.
What do I like to do for fun? I like to work out, which sounds really lame. I like to play video games with my kids. Minecraft is a fun game we like to play. And then music. And I feel like I'm boring. It's like I have 3 hobbies, kind of.
I really you can tell that you used to have a podcast because you just asked yourself a question and then answered it. So I like that. You're like interviewing yourself.
We're the easiest guests.
You really are. Well, let's get into your story. But before we do that, because this is a show for kids, I always ask my guests to tell me a joke. So do you have a joke for us today?
I do. And you know what? I had to look this one up in all transparency because I am terrible at jokes.
Okay.
But anyway, my joke is this. What do you call a sad strawberry?
Sad strawberry. I don't know.
It's a blueberry.
Oh,
blueberry.
It is a blueberry. That's so sad.
It's a little blueberry.
Okay, so let's talk about your book. It's called The Boy in the Tree. What made you decide you wanted to write a kid's book? Because like you said, you're doing podcasting, you're working at the church, you are working corporate America, and you're like, I got an idea for a kid's book. How did that come about?
So it's really interesting because my journey, right, through being a pastor's kid, then getting exposed to counseling and getting a master's in counseling and then kind of diving into that world and started to see just how people relate to themselves and the world around them. And, I saw that. And then I went to corporate America and saw corporate America, the church, very similar in the sense of all the gaps that people have in their lives and why we live out frustrations, how we live out frustrations, and what happens when we're not living the right way or living for the Lord. Right. And so as I kind of explored that, I thought, man, I really would like to talk more about that idea. And a friend of mine said, no one cares unless you wrote a book. And I said, noted. And so she said, unless you write a book, no one's going to listen to you talk about anything. And I said, that's fine. So I wrote a book called Your Missing X Factor, which was really just an idea of, can you be the most yourself? How can you be the most yourself in any circumstance without compromising or manipulating? The idea of just being you're not that person that is a puppet master, but you're you, who the Lord's wired you to be, how the Lord's made you with biblical principles as backing. And no one read it, which is fine. It's fine. It's whatever.
I'd love to read it. Where is it? I want to read it.
It's on Amazon.
Okay.
It's called Your Missing X Factor.
Okay.
But I wrote that, right? And I was trying to target that specific audience of people that were in, corporate America, or adults, parents, young adults kind of thing. And then I was going through counseling because I had my own issues I was working through. And my wife and I, we have 3 kids, right? We have gone through different seasons of, she had postpartum really bad. And then I had some issues that I was working through, anxiety, depression, some dark thoughts that I had when I was younger and then just were gone. And then they hit me really hard when we were pregnant with Edmund. And so I'm like, what is going on? So I started to go to counseling. And I go to the specific type of counseling called EMDR, which is fantastic. If you ever have anything in your life that you want to work through, trauma, issues that you've had in your life, EMDR is the best because it's emotional, it's eye movement, disassociation, reprogramming, I think. And essentially it's removing the physical reaction that you have to trauma or anything in your life that causes those anxieties. And then you start, you have your heart palpitations, shortness of breath, tingles, all that kind of stuff. And it helps you get past those physical manifestations and automatic reactions and then reprograms it with a positive. To me, it's one of the most beautiful ways the Lord has enabled us to kind of tweak the body's natural response that happens as a result of sin, right? Because if sin's been done to us or we've sinned, our body doesn't like it because God designed our bodies to not take part in that, right? It's not how he's wired us to do it.
Right.
And so what ends up happening is our bodies try to push us away. Like if you hurt your arm, your body naturally, your mind naturally says, well, we're not going to use that arm. We'll use our left arm, right? If I hurt my right arm, right? And it's the same thing emotionally. If we are hurt emotionally or we have trauma in our past, our body pushes us away from that because we don't want to get hurt more. And this type of counseling helps you actually go into that and then work through it. And so when you basically start counseling, a good EMDR counselor will say, all right, let's do what's called a trauma assessment. And it's basically like, or inventory, we're going to list all the traumas you've ever been through in your life. And they always, what's the earliest one? And I'm like, I'm 30, I'm 34. I'm like, I don't know. It's like, okay, what about something that happened when you were a kid that you didn't like? And I thought, I don't know, I got stuck in a tree. He goes, let's talk about that. And so we started talking about it. And lo and behold, I got stuck in a tree when I was a kid, and I was so embarrassed that I never wanted to be embarrassed again. So I tried to control everything and everyone. Like I was manipulator extraordinaire of people and circumstances and the narrative. And I hated it. And I would always tell people, like when I get embarrassed, I get hot. I start to sweat. My heart rate jumps up through the roof. And I was like, does that ever happen to anyone around me? And they're like, no, you just get embarrassed. What do you mean? Like, you don't like have a near death experience when you get embarrassed. They're like, no, what are you talking about? So I'm like, there's something wrong with me. But yeah, it's because of that. I had no idea. And so my counselor, he knew that I'd already written a book, that I write music. And he said, why don't you write a story, like a poem about it? Which credit to him as a great counselor, understanding the person you're counseling, going, this is how they process and how they work through things. Yeah. Let's have him do that. Right. And so I wrote it, and it wasn't finished, but I wrote most of it. And I presented it to him in the next counseling session. And he said, this is really actually good. You should finish it and you should publish it into a kid's book. And I never would have said yes to that like 2 years ago, because I wouldn't have already written a book. I wouldn't have discovered I like writing and have loved doing that. And even the podcast, right? I never would have discovered that I enjoy trying to give language to situations and to people to help them understand things differently, right? Like, it's interesting how the Lord's, whether it was pastor's kid, counseling experience, master's podcast, like he's just been developing this idea of understanding emotional intelligence and being able to speak to it in a way that not everyone does. And it's just that story. It's literally just a story of a boy who gets stuck in a tree, and he loves climbing trees, which I did. I'd climb to the very top of any tree. I'd be like feet away from power lines. It didn't matter. Wow. But this tree that I find in this story is like, it's so weird because it looks like that. It's like, to me, it was much bigger, but it was like a tree that had kind of like curved or fallen and it didn't have any limbs. And so I remember I scrambled up to the middle, and the same thing with the story in this here, like the kid scrambles up to the middle and he's like, I can only see ground. And I swear when I was a kid, I was like, I feel like I'm 50 feet up. Now, probably it was like 20 or 30. Yeah. But I'm 7, 8 at the time. I have no idea. And I got stuck. And my friends are like, what are you doing? Just get down. I can't. And so my dad has to get an extension ladder and do it all the way to the end and gets me down. And I didn't know, but I had said, I'm never going to feel like that again. And that's basically how the story goes. The boy gets stuck. He says, I'm never going to feel like that again. I don't want to do that. And then it just talks about how like, that's not how we're supposed to live lives. Yeah. Always protecting ourselves. Yes. Yeah. Weakness is a part of not just our lives, but a part of taking risks. Yeah. Specifically because like, if you don't take a risk, then you're not going to be, that's you not being okay with the fact that you'll probably fail. And failure's fine. Yeah. And that's actually a normal part of life, because if you want to go within the scripture and the gospel, like that's where we are this side of eternity, is we are fallen, but we have been saved by grace through faith. So we'll still stumble, we'll still fall, but Christ is there to catch us and be there with us. But also just in everyday life, like we are not perfect. And to think that we could ever try to make ourselves perfect is either we're going to put way too much pressure on ourselves, or we're going to put way too much pressure on other people, right? Like I did, like making, they should have known not to do that. And I realized that a lot in the relationships I had, where I would say a lot of that, like, how do they not know how to do that? Or they should have done this, or blah, blah, blah. And I always had some issue with someone else or something else outside of myself. Yeah. Because I was so in this controlled mentality of like, everything needs to be this way, and in my world and my control. So, and I love that you put that into a book. I love that your counselor encouraged you to do that. I think that, like you said, that's very wise to know that that's something that that's how you process things. And so he was able to help you do that. Tell us a little bit more about this idea of anxiety and
that feeling of not being in control. Is that something that you feel like you deal with every day and you have to always overcome it? Or is it something that's spurred on by like things that happen to you?
It's hard now, right? I mean, you and I were talking about this a little bit. We're older and it feels like we have, I guess you could say, more handles on it in the sense that we didn't grow up in this new technology world where like, we were in a world where we didn't know everything or not everything was available to us. Now everything is available to you and you could know anything you wanted, which isn't always great, especially when you're too young to understand and process.
Right.
But what I've seen though in my own life is, like, I mean, in full transparency, my anxiety was crazy high this morning. And my kids, I feel terrible because I'm in the car doing school drop off and my daughter is singing Jesus music, kids sing praise from like the 1980s. And she's fine and she's cute and she's great, but apparently it's driving me nuts. And then my other kid is like lightly tapping my seat, but it feels like she's hitting me in the back of the head with a boulder. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm like, Lord, I need your help.
Yeah.
And it really is. Like, it is an element of some days, like everything is great. And I think part of that is also understanding the limitations too, right? Before I have a 1-year-old. He's not always going to sleep well. He was sick last week. I was sick last week. So that meant some of the nights we weren't sleeping. If you don't sleep, your body doesn't function well.
Right.
And if you feel though, like I can never be weak, weakness isn't okay, I always have to be strong and push through things, then you're never going to be okay with like understand the fact that if you sleep not well, the next day your brain's not going to function well, which means probably if you already have some type of wrestle with anxiety, you're going to wrestle with it more that day.
Yeah.
But if you didn't want to give yourself that room and understanding, then you're going to be even harder on yourself. And so even like days like this morning, I have to be more gracious with myself in those moments because like, I've been sick this weekend. I haven't slept well. Just because I slept well last night doesn't mean I've just made up for like 3 nights of bad sleep. And so, some days it is like today where it's a little harder and I kind of have to lean into the Lord more, not like I don't before, but I have to kind of lean into my own weakness too.
Yeah.
In the sense of like, today's just gonna be a harder day and understanding that, you know? I'd say for me, I do wrestle with it more than just kind of like, oh, I had a bad event. Here it comes. Sometimes it's just like, it's a little bit more present now than it used to be, but continuing to work through it and give it to the Lord.
And you said something interesting too. You said that weakness is okay. And so for people that struggle with like feeling that sense of control, they need that sense of control. To say that weakness is okay, that's really hard, right? So how did you come to that idea and accepting that weakness is okay? We'll be right back after this. Wouldn't it be amazing if the media your kids watch could entertain and support their spiritual growth? With Minnow, it can. Minnow is the #1 source for Christian kids content. The Minnow streaming service is filled with high-quality shows that spark imagination and curiosity about God and the Bible. From adventure in young David to singing and scripture for little ones in God's greenhouse, and the hilarious new series, The Dead Sea Squirrels, from the co-creator of VeggieTales. Minnow even has the Laugh and Grow Bible for kids, with beloved Bible moments and support for tackling some curious questions, plus classics like VeggieTales, Bible Man, and more. And did I mention it's all ad-free? Visit gominnow.com to start your free trial and start watching today.
Well, I mean, there's a couple things. One, scripture's clear, right? Paul said, when I am weak, then I am strong. His power, Christ's power, is made perfect in my weakness. I mean, one of my tattoos, I don't have many. I only have them on my left arm. But one of my tattoos is in Latin, when I'm weak, then I am strong. Just as a reminder to me, as a result of when I got this idea from the book, was weak is okay. Because then it also was an element of, and my wife and I have talked about this literally last night, it was, not everything has to be so black and white in the sense of, well, if it isn't this good, then it has to be the worst, right? And I think if you view weakness like that, like weakness isn't okay, then what you're only going to ever see is if any time you show any weakness, it's the worst thing in the world, which then is not great. Mentally, you're gonna explode in some way. But if you allow yourself to be okay with being weak, which I've had to do, it shows you, okay, there is more grace to be given in the situation. Then also helps me lean into the Lord more, because if not, then I've already written off either like my day or myself or an interaction or a project that I'm doing. And so that's kind of how I came to it, was not just like the book, but also through the counseling, seeing like, hey, I have too much of a black and white view of myself in that way. And then also with scripture, right? Like Christ's power isn't made perfect if I'm never aware of the weakness in a good way. If I'm like, I'm not weak, then Christ's power can't be manifest in a way that others could see too, which is another element of that, right? Like if you're listening to this podcast and you wrestle with weakness, if you never want to ever appear weak, the hardest thing is going to be that there might be someone who is wrestling with the same thing, and they could have used the encouragement of your transparency and your honesty and your willingness to put yourself in with the Lord and have his power made perfect in your weakness. But because you didn't, they won't. And that's been an interesting journey too, as I've kind of come out with this book, is more and more people have been like that. I identify with the kid. People my age are like, I identify with the boy in the tree.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm still stuck.
Yeah.
And I'm going, exactly. See, and if I hadn't done that, maybe some of these people might not have had that, and the Lord might not have been able to work in their heart.
Yeah, that's so true. And that's such a good, encouraging thing to think about, that our displays of our weaknesses, if we put it out there and we're transparent and vulnerable, it could help someone. I love the quote, I don't know who said it, that God takes our mess and he makes it our message. So the things that we made mistakes, or the things that we can't do well, or the things that we're just like, my whole life is a mess. But God can take that and he could use that to speak to somebody else's life. So that's really true. And I think that's also true for parents, that if you're a parent and you're listening to this, when we're open and honest about the things that we're struggling with, or things that we're having a hard time with, or maybe we have some anxiety, and just having an open conversation with our kids about that to the level that they can understand, I think that's helpful for them to process what they're going through, because they might think, Mom and Dad don't understand this because I'm going through something in my mind. But if we talk about it as a family, everybody can kind of, link arms and say, hey, we're going to get through this together, because we're all struggling with different things. Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why I wrote this book too, right? So, I joke, no one read the Corporate America book. That's fine. But I did realize though, I read so many kids' books to my kids. Mm-hmm. We max out how many you can get at the library every time. I think it's 50 at our local library. We get 50 books. And then we just are like, they just take up our entire kitchen table. Do we read all of them? No. And I am just like, why do we do this? But we read so many kids' books. And I know, as a parent, like when our kids are in that age range where they are just like consuming books all the time, and they want you to read to them, they want to get in your lap still and have you read a book to them. You read a ton of books, and you also read the same book a ton of times, right? It's just how it is. And it's a great thing. And I realized, okay, there is a group of people that I'm trying to target that aren't going to read this Corporate America book. But if I were to write a kid's book, already what I want to do is help the kids. It's also going to help the parent by proximity, because they're going to read it too. And so what if that's how they have those conversations, right? Is they read the book, the kid asks, what do you mean weakness is okay and whatever? And the parent has to grapple with that. And then they can have an honest conversation with their kid where they go, like you said, yeah, I wrestle with that too. I wrestle with being weak when, I'm tired and I feel like I can't parent you well, and I get frustrated easily, and I'm sorry, because I know that's me leaning into that weakness in the wrong way rather than leaning into the Lord, right? It helps those conversations happen. So that was another reason why I wrote it too.
That's really cool. I love that. So tell me about your process for writing a book, for writing a kid's book. I know that you said that you came up with this poem for your counseling, and then they're like, hey, let's make it a book. But you've written another book. So what's your process? Like, what's that like?
Well, it's interesting too, because I just love writing. So there's this book, The Boy in the Tree, and then my oldest daughter will not let this go, because I told her I was going to write another book that would go with this one called The Girl in the House. So that's a book that's going to come out in a couple of years. That's already written, just needs to be edited. And it's for the female side, because a lot of what I think how I write books is I see like, okay, the things around me in my own life that also are touching the idea of, so for me, it's emotional intelligence, is just like helping people understand themselves and the world around them. But specifically, The Boy in the Tree is about like weakness is okay. And The Girl in the House is about not just asking for help, but like giving of yourself to be able to process things with others, or like, and not just isolating, right?
Yeah.
So the girl in the house is actually about a girl who hears her parents argue a lot. And it's not like they're having a terrible marriage. It's just more like every day, like today it's hard. Parents argue. My wife and I argue in front of my kids from time to time because life is tough, right? It's not, you can't avoid it. But what happens is the girl hides in her toy house in her room because she feels like she can't talk about things because her parents are always having these issues or they're working through things. And so she just starts to work through things on her own. And then what happens is she grows up and is this boss babe lady who is killing it in corporate America. She has kids, but then her daughter is having a hard time relating to emotions and understanding how. And then she goes like, yeah, actually, I don't know how to talk about emotions. I can talk about goals and sports and like processes or whatever. But when you ask me to start talking about emotions, I don't even know how to access that. And so that's even going to be a story for more of the female side of especially millennials, Gen X's, and even now Gen Z's, it's more about like just killing it, crushing it, doing great as whether it's in sports or your profession as a woman, rather than like being able to be this balanced picture of biblical womanhood, which is like yes, you can have this idea of something you strive for and you do, but then also you are like the emotional anchor of your house, of your home in that way, and how you can be that. And so that was even just seeing my sister and my wife, like just seeing how they relate to the world and the conversations we've had about that. It was, okay, there's an idea, right? And I think that's the process. If you're an aspiring writer, the biggest thing you need to be able to do is never say no to yourself when you have an idea. And you have to give yourself the permission to chase that. So for me, it was, I think I need to do a sister book, no pun intended, just like some type of sister book. And then I kind of explored that. And then I have another idea for a book series. That's going to be like a when book series. So specifically, we'll have like situations, and it'll just be situations where you could use emotional intelligence. Like, hey, what happens if you're, when it's no one's fault? Like you're supposed to go on this trip and you get sick from being at school and now you can't go on the trip. You don't have anyone to blame, but it feels like all the time we have to try to find someone to blame. And so what do you do when it's no one's fault? Like, how do you let that go? Right. And so that's another book series that is also in the back that I'm working on that I'll eventually do as well. And then I also have a sci-fi novel series that's really fun that I'm working on. That's like, I love it. I've been working on it in the back while I'm doing all this stuff because I need it. And that's the other thing too. If you're a writer, if you really want to write, like I said, don't say no to yourself if you ever had an idea.
Yeah.
And then also have something that you're constantly working on just to keep going that you love. Because the difference is, if all I do is just like this book, then what ends up happening is like your life is sucked into it. And then the good and the bad are way bigger of a deal than they need to be.
Yeah.
So like the good of, oh yeah, people pre-ordered it. But then the bad of like, you don't have anything to do for it this week or the next week while you're working towards publishing, or after it publishes, like you might not have a speaking engagement or you might not have a bunch of sales. Like, what do you do? And you don't want to stop being creative. So you need something to keep kind of pulling that creativity out of you. So I've been using the sci-fi book series as that way for me.
Yeah. Do you think you'll ever publish the sci-fi one, or is that just something you do for fun?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I love that story so much. I can't, seriously, my wife is making fun of me because I can't stop writing it. And I'll be up at night just writing and writing and writing. I think the sci-fi novel length that I've done research on that like most people do is 500 pages. Which is about 120,000 words. And I'm about at 85,000 right now.
Wow. Okay.
So I'm going to do 3 books too.
Wow.
So it's a lot of fun.
Okay. But I love that that's your fun thing. Like you're like, when I need something, I just go. And I love, and you said just always when you have an idea, don't put it away. Like write it down, pursue it, see what you can do with it, because you never know.
Chase it.
You never know where it could come from or what could happen.
Right. Because someone might ask you about something and then you bring that up and they're like, oh, I'd love for you to do that, which is another thing too. If you never explore something that you have an idea of, you may never get the affirmation that the Lord's trying to give you through someone.
Absolutely.
Right. So like case in point, the sci-fi novel, I have a really good friend who loves sci-fi. And I was like, I have this idea. Would you read it? And he said, yes, I would read that. And I want you to write this. And that was the thing that the Lord used to say, like, you need to write this.
Yeah.
And then now I've been able to use that. Like case in point for my wife knows if I'm writing sometimes too, it helps with my anxiety. So if I have anxiety, and that's the idea of, a lot of anxiety comes from I can't control these situations. I then And this is my counselor who was like, this is narrative therapy. It's literally what it is you are controlling something in a healthy way by writing. So I'm creating this scenario. I'm writing this story out. I'm in control of it, but not in a bad way, in a good way, because I'm also pulling from a positive, which is this creative aspect that the Lord's wired me to use, right? So you are handling the negative with the positive in a positive way. And if you don't do that, then you'll constantly be spinning your wheels or be spiraling in that way.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I love that you can use that and so that's such great advice too for people listening. If you're trying to figure out a way to process things, or you have anxiety, or you have some of these issues, that you can use creative outlets to kind of help.
Yeah.
Instead of just, like you said, spiraling or getting upset or whatever.
Exactly.
Go put it into sports or put it into music or something like that. So
yeah,
that's really good advice. I love that. Well, Joel, this has been so fun. Thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing about your book. And where can our listeners find out about your book and purchase?
It's The Boy in the Tree, When Weak is Okay.
Okay.
You can buy my book on all these different type of platforms. Amazon. You can go to my website, which is j.conwell, or jconwell.org. That's where you can buy it too. You can find the link. My Instagram will be j.conwell_. You can find the book link there too. But you can find it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, everywhere. And you can buy hard copy and or paperback as well. So
awesome. Well, I definitely encourage our listeners to go check that out. Get a hold of this book. Read it as a family. Have those great conversations. Yes. I think that's so important. Before I let you go, I always ask my guests to tell me a memory from when they were a kid. So do you have a memory you want to share with us?
Okay. So this was back when home movies were really fun and cool. I guess like now home movies are just an iPhone. But, we had like the big camera. My parents had the big camera. And we loved this movie, That Thing You Do with Tom Hanks.
Yeah, I love that movie. My favorite.
Such a good movie. It's one of my favorites.
Me too.
Okay. Glad you know.
Yes.
So me and my brother and my sister, we would reenact like the songs.
Yes.
And we were outside and we would just have sticks. This is once again makes me feel like I'm like this, like in the country bumpkin. Like we weren't. We just didn't have guitars and stuff. So we had sticks and we played like we were playing the guitar. And I had sticks like I was playing the drums. And we were just outside like pretending to sing and to play and doing that thing you do. And I just remember like we loved it. And then we would watch back the home videos and they were so fun.
Yes.
And I was just like the simple, you're just with your siblings. It was like the TikTok of the older times. That's when you would lip sync, but we were lip syncing to like a cassette player on like a, little cassette player thing, and it's playing, and then someone has this massive camera.
Yes.
But that was such like a ton of fun. And that's why I love that movie to this day. It's not even just that I loved the movie, but I had such fond memories like that of reenacting the movie and the scene. So
I love that. Our family also had that really big camera. It sat on the shoulder. So we called it channel. We called it like the news station. It was like a news station thing. And my dad always used the fade out and fade in feature. So almost every home video, it's like, and we fade
it's
out.
Like cinematic.
And then he'd like accidentally like fade out too soon. So he'd fade back in. And we always gave him grief about that, about his,
I love that so
his video
much.
editing style. So
yeah. And nowadays kids are just using iPhones and TikTok dances.
Right.
And we're like,
they don't even know.
We had to really work for it when we were doing our stuff.
It was heavy too.
It was heavy.
That's awesome. Well, Joel, thank you so much for being on the show today. It was great having you. Oh, that was so fun. And I love learning that we had the same favorite movie growing up. That's so cool. Joel shared today that being weak is okay. It is. He had this embarrassing moment when he got stuck in a tree, and that experience stuck with him. It made him realize how much he tried to avoid feeling embarrassed or out of control, which sometimes leads to anxiety. And that story inspired his new book, helping kids and adults understand their emotions and learn that it's okay to feel weak sometimes. Failure is okay. Being weak is okay. We are not perfect. And Joel reminded us that we're still prone to make mistakes, but Christ is there to catch us, just like Joel's dad did when he went and got the ladder. I love when Joel was talking about that verse in 2 Corinthians 12:9 that says that Christ's power is made perfect in weakness. When we stop fighting our weaknesses and let God work through them, that's when his power really shows. That's when others can see it too and be encouraged by how he works in our story and works through our lives. So cool. Well, if you'd like to learn more about Joel and his books, you can head over to his website, jconwell.org. You can also find his books on Amazon. Just search for The Boy in the Tree. Well, now it's time for one of my favorite parts of the show. It's our family discussion segment. This is where we ask a few fun and thoughtful questions to help you keep the conversation going with your family. So you can pause after each question to think about it and talk about it together now, or listen to all the questions and chat about them later, whatever works best for your family. So let's talk about it. Number one, how do you feel when things don't go your way or when you're not in control? What helps you stay calm and trust in God in those moments? Here's the second one. Who in your life has encouraged you by being honest about their mistakes or their struggles? How did their story help you see God's power at work? And here's the last one. Can you think of a time when you felt really embarrassed or got stuck in a situation kind of like Joel did? How did it feel when someone helped you out? Well, I hope these questions spark some great conversations with you and your family today. Hey, if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to connect with me on social media. I'm at Collide Kids Pod on Instagram and Facebook. And don't forget to share this episode with a friend or family or someone who might need some encouragement. You can always head over to our website, collidekidspodcast.com, to catch up on past episodes. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You could actually go there and watch the full interview from today's show. You know, one of the best ways you can support the podcast is by leaving a quick rating and a review on your favorite podcast app, especially Apple. They really pay attention to that stuff, and it really helps other families find out about the show. So take a quick minute to head over there and leave a rating and review. We would really appreciate it. And as always, I am so grateful for your prayer support as well. Well, I hope you guys have an amazing week. I hope that this message today sticks with you, that weakness is okay. And in case no one has told you today, I would love to be the first to remind you that God loves you so much. Thanks for listening.
You know, raising kids in the digital age isn't easy, but Bark Technology makes products that help parents keep their kids safe online and in real life. They have an app, a phone, and a home device that lets families set parental controls on their internet-connected devices. I love the app because it helps us manage screen time and blocks websites and apps we want our kids to avoid. It also sends alerts and gives us the ability to monitor texts and social media and even track your child's location. Visit bark.us to learn more about how you can keep your kids safe online. Use the code COLLIDEKIDS to get 15% off your subscription of the Bark app.